Rome, heart of the empire, city of marble and power, of wide avenues, colossal statues, and temples that touch the sky. Among its majestic buildings stands the residence of one of the city's most respected senators, a noble house built with white stone, imposing columns, and walls covered in frescoes that reflect wealth and authority. Every day, the air of the palace fills with aromas of incense, wine, and spices brought from the east. Laughter is heard, footsteps of servants, conversations of important men. The tables are filled with bread, meats, fruits, and silver jugs. Everything shines, everything seems abundant, everything seems like life. But behind the house, where the marble gives way to shadow, there is another world that no one wants to see. Under the grand exterior staircases, in a cold, damp, and dark corner, lives a man covered in rags. His skin is tanned by the wind, his hands tremble with exhaustion, his body is weak, and his bare feet rest on the hardened earth. No one knows who he is. No one asks. To everyone, he is nothing more than a nuisance, an uncomfortable presence, a life without a name. The servants call him with disdain, the wretch of the staircase. They never treat him like a human being. When there is old bread left over, they throw it on the ground, as if they were feeding a stray animal. Sometimes they throw him bones, crumbs, scraps of food that others did not want to touch. Some young servants laugh at him, mock his appearance, say cruel words to him. Others simply pass by him without looking at him, as if he were invisible, as if his life had no value, and he remains silent. He does not answer insults. He does not curse his fate. He does not extend his hand demanding more. He only lowers his gaze, picks up the leftovers with humility, and eats slowly, as one who is grateful even for the smallest thing. His nights are long and icy. The humidity pierces him. His body trembles in winter and burns under the summer sun. Sometimes he gets sick. Sometimes he feels that he can no longer continue, but he remains there, under the staircase, immobile, meek, patient. No one wonders where he came from. No one suspects that this poor and dirty beggar hides an immense story. No one imagines that behind his silence beats a heart full of secrets. And so the years pass, one after another. Countless winters, countless sunrises, 17 full years, 17 years of humiliation, cold, hunger, and contempt, lived in the place where everyone sees him, but where no one looks at him. Until one day his body stops moving. The servants believe that he is just another beggar who has died in oblivion. They approach to remove him without ceremony, without a name, without tears. But between his fingers, rigid and pale, they find a small scroll of parchment. They open it, and suddenly, everything changes. The written words make the soul of whoever reads them tremble. I am Alexis, your son. I have been here all this time. The world stops. The heart breaks. The truth hidden for years finally comes to light. That despised beggar, that man to whom they threw crumbs, that stranger no one wanted to look at, was not a stranger. He was the son of the house. And so begins one of the most profound, painful, and moving stories of ancient Christianity, the life of the man who gave up everything and chose to live wholly, hidden under a staircase. Before the beggar existed beneath the stairs, before the silence became his refuge, there was a house full of light, hope, and promises. Let us go back in time. Rome, late 4th century. The city breathes power. Cobblestone streets, bustling forums, temples, markets, senators, soldiers. The political heart of the empire beats there, imposing and proud. Amidst this grandeur stands the mansion of Eufemiano, one of the most respected senators of his time. His residence is almost a palace, marble columns, gleaming mosaics, fountains in the courtyards, terraces open to the sky. The hallways echo with the footsteps of servants. Expensive perfumes scent the halls, and the sound of music accompanies the gala dinners. Eufemiano is admired for his prudence, his intelligence, and his public generosity. In the eyes of the world, he has it all: wealth, influence, political prestige, and a wife worthy of praise. His wife Aglaia is different from many noble women of Rome. Although she lives surrounded by luxury, her heart belongs to God. She is pious, humble, discreet. Her inner life is made of silent prayer, constant charity, and hidden works that few know. But in the midst of so much abundance, there is a void that no wealth can fill. They have no children. Year after year, hope withers like a candle slowly dying. The silence of the house becomes painful. There are no children's laughter, no small steps running through the halls, no blood heritage to continue the lineage. For Eufemiano, each family celebration becomes a cruel reminder. Friends' families arrive with their descendants, and he observes in silence, feeling that his surname is heading towards extinction. In Rome, not having an heir is not just sadness, it is shame, fragility, insecurity for the future. Aglaé suffers in silence. At night, when everyone is asleep, she kneels before a small lit lamp, raises her trembling hands and pleads with a broken heart, "Lord, if you look upon my pain, if you deign to grant me a son, I will consecrate him completely to you." Her tears fall on the cold marble, and God hears. One day, without warning, without spectacular signs, hope is reborn. Aglaé conceives life in her womb. The house fills with joy. The servants celebrate. The neighbors congratulate. The friends of the Senate praise the blessing. Eufemiano weeps with emotion as never before. For the first time, he feels that his lineage will not be extinguished. And finally, the child is born, small, fragile, tender, but wrapped in a divine promise. They give him a name laden with meaning, Aleo, he who defends, he who helps, he who supports others. His parents imagine a bright future, elite education, political power, family honor, a future heir of the empire, and his father's prestige. The wisest teachers instruct him. They train him in rhetoric, philosophy, law, moral discipline. He grows noble, serene, intelligent, and along with his talent, a deep spiritual sensitivity rose within him. Eufemiano dreams of seeing him take his place in the Senate. Aglaé, on the other hand, remembers the promise she made before God and keeps it in her heart like a silent sword. What none of them imagine is that their son's path will not follow the paths of human power, because while men prepare plans of glory, God prepares one much greater, one that no one suspects, one that will transform his name forever, one that will lead him from the splendor of the palace to the dark corner beneath the staircase. Aleo grows up surrounded by privilege. Soft fabrics brush against his skin. Musicians fill the hallways with soft melodies. The gardens exhale the aromas of fresh flowers, and teachers come one after another to instruct him in science, philosophy, and the arts. Everything in his life seems designed for him to one day occupy a place of power, but while the house shines in luxury, his heart follows another path. From a young age, Aleo shows a sensitivity that is strange in the eyes of the world. He is not dazzled by banquets, nor by jewels, nor by social prestige. When his noble companions gather to show off new clothes or talk about political influences, he withdraws in silence, seeking a quiet corner where he can think, where he can listen to the voice of his soul. He prefers the quiet spaces of the inner garden, where the wind gently moves the leaves of the cypresses. There, under the shade of the trees, he sits to read sacred texts, while the others train for public and military life. His mother, Aglaé, watches him in secret. There is pride in her gaze, but also something deeper, recognition. She knows that God has placed in her son a different seed, an inner strength that is not born of human power, but of a mysterious vocation that no one yet understands. Eufemiano, on the other hand, feels unease. A son like that does not quite fit into the world of the Senate. He loves him, admires him, but fears that this spiritual inclination will make him a weak man in public life. He dreams of seeing him strong, decisive, eloquent, prepared to govern and defend the family legacy. One night, while talking with his wife, he confesses his fear. Our son is good, but too distant from the world. How will he be able to lead a family, a house, a name, if he lives so apart from human passions? Aglaé lowers her gaze. She remembers her promise to God, but she does not mention it. She knows that Aleo's heart does not belong to luxury or ambition. She sees him pray in silence, discreetly share his food with the poor, Listen with compassion to the servants. Walk without pride among those who serve him. Aleo, for his part, feels that something inside him calls him to a different life. He does not despise riches, but neither does he desire them. Sometimes, as he walks through the marble courtyards, he looks around and asks himself a question that worries him and accompanies him night after night. If all this one day disappears, what remains of the man who only lives for his possessions? And then, while the other young men prepare to shine before men, he prepares to surrender himself to God. His spirit grew stronger away from the noise of power and vanity. Like a tree that grows in silence, but with deep roots that no one sees, without knowing it yet, that detachment would be the key that would open the path of his destiny. A path that will lead him to renounce everything that the world considers great, to embrace that which many will never understand. As the years pass, Aleo stops being a child, becomes a noble young man in every way. His bearing is serene, his gaze clean, his character prudent and respectful. The neighbors admire him, the teachers praise him, and the influential families of Rome consider him an ideal husband for their daughters. Proposals are not lacking. Distinguished ladies speak discreetly with Egle, ambitious mothers praise his virtues, and friends of the Senate assure that an advantageous marriage would further strengthen the family's social position. For Eufemiano, this possibility is more than a joy. It is the hope of perpetuating his lineage. Finally, after long conversations and family agreements, a young noblewoman is chosen to be his wife. She is beautiful, refined, with a pure heart and exemplary conduct. Her sweetness inspires respect, and her discretion makes her the ideal complement to a man like Aleo. The union is announced. All of Rome celebrates. Preparations multiply. The courtyards of the mansion are adorned with fine fabrics. The musicians rehearse. The lamps remain lit night and day. Everyone talks about the wedding, an event that symbolizes prosperity, continuity, family triumph. But while everyone else celebrates, a silent battle is waged in Aleo's heart. Since his adolescence, he has made a secret promise to God, an inner surrender that no one knows about, a vow that binds his soul to service, detachment, spiritual poverty. And although he deeply respects the young woman who will be his wife, he knows that his path does not belong to the world or to marriage, but to a life of renunciation. The night before the wedding, he prays for hours. He looks at the sky and wonders if he has the right to unite his life to another, when his heart was already offered to God long ago. His hands tremble, his soul struggles between family duty and the spiritual call that consumes him from within. The day arrives. The ceremony is celebrated with splendor. Blessings, songs, congratulations, hugs. Everyone smiles. No one suspects the hidden drama. Night falls. The young wife waits in the bridal chamber. She is excited, nervous, full of hope. She dreams of building a home, a family, a future alongside a just and kind man. But Alejo does not approach. He remains at a distance with a serious face and a heart wounded by the decision he is about to make. Finally, he gathers courage, looks at his wife with compassion, and reveals what he had never dared to say before. He cannot commit himself to marriage. His soul already belongs to Christ. The young woman listens in silence. First, she does not understand. Then, pain pierces her heart like a sword. She cries silently, not out of contempt or betrayal, but because she understands that Alejo is not rejecting her, but the whole world. He kneels, asks for forgiveness, confesses that he has struggled against his own decision, but he cannot betray God's call. Then, as a definitive sign of renunciation, he removes the ring and leaves it there on the table. Dawn approaches. Before the sun rises over Rome, Alejo leaves the house. He leaves without riches, without escorts, without farewells. He leaves behind his inheritance, his name, his social future, his parents' dreams, and also the innocent love of that young woman who would have been his wife. He leaves alone, with a broken heart, and with the certainty that the path he begins will have no return. Because there are decisions that are not made out of ambition, but out of obedience to the deepest call of the soul. The night he abandons his home, Laio does not look back. He walks through the silent streets of Rome with a heart torn, but firm. He does not flee out of fear. He flees from comfort, from honor, from the destiny that the world had laid out for him. He seeks the path that only God knows. He arrives at the port before dawn. The sea stretches immense, dark, like a border between his past and his future. Without escorts, without riches, with only the clothes on his back, he gives a few coins he carried with him and boards a merchant ship that departs for the east. The journey is long. The wind beats the sails, the sea roars. The sailors murmur prayers during the storms. Aleo remains silent, looking at the horizon, letting each mile traveled slowly erase the memory of his old life. Finally, he arrives in Edessa, in Syria, a humble, spiritual city, full of pilgrims, the sick, beggars, and foreigners seeking refuge or redemption. There are no bright mosaics or lavish banquets. Here, life is measured in shared bread and prayers made at dawn, and in the midst of that nameless crowd, Alejo chooses to disappear. He gets rid of the little that still distinguishes him. His noble clothes wear out little by little until they become rags. His delicate hands fill with dust. The brightness of his face fades, and the shadow of sacrifice covers his expression. No one knows who he is. No one suspects that this silent beggar was once the son of a Roman senator. He does not seek recognition. He seeks purification. He eats only when someone takes pity on him. There are days when he fasts unintentionally. He sleeps under porticos, on steps, in corners where the cold seeps between the stones. His only company is prayer, and time passes. 5 years, 10 years, 17 full years, 17 years of anonymity, poverty, and silence. Meanwhile, far from there, Rome lives in perpetual mourning. When Aleo disappeared, his family initially believed he would return soon. Then came anguish, then despair. Eufemiano sent messengers to different regions of the empire. They asked in ports, monasteries, villages, roads, but no one could give news. His wife, still young, made a silent oath. She would never remarry. She would wait for him, even if he never returned. Aglae, his mother, grew old, crying every night in front of the same lit lamp with which once asked God for a son. Now her prayers have become a lament. Eufemiano, the great senator, is consumed from within. He blames himself for not having understood his son's heart, for having pushed him into a life he did not want. His public glory remains intact, but his spirit crumbles slowly. For everyone, Aleo is dead. For God, he is more alive than ever. What no one imagines is that the lost son still exists, not in the halls of power, but in the humility of the dust, unknowingly preparing for the most unexpected outcome of his story. Time in Edessa passes slowly, like a silent river that leaves no trace. Alexius has learned to live with little, to accept the cold, the hunger, and the oblivion. His soul has grown strong in sacrifice, but not hardened. He continues to pray, to trust, to offer his life in silence, until, one morning, something changes. While he is in deep prayer, he feels within himself an inner voice, not a sound, but a certainty that pierces his spirit with absolute clarity. He must return to Rome, not as a nobleman, not as a son, not as an heir, but as an unknown beggar. The idea shakes him. The mere thought of returning to the place he left behind causes him deep pain. He knows that, if he returns, we will not be able to reveal who he is. He also knows that he may not be understood or forgiven, but this call does not come from fear or memory. It comes from God. And Alexius obeys. He sells the little he has, offers his last coins to the poor, and sets out on the road back. The journey is long, exhausting, full of cold nights and dusty roads, but a strange peace reigns in his heart, as if he knew that fate is approaching its conclusion. When he finally sees Rome, his heart beats strongly. The city has changed. New buildings, new faces, new voices. However, something remains the same. The majestic house of Senator Eufemianus still stands, firm, solid, proud, like a monument to the past he left behind. Alexius stops in front of it. He looks at the great door that was once his, but now he is a stranger. He approaches timidly, Like any beggar seeking shelter, he does not ask for recognition. He does not mention his name. He only requests a corner to rest. The servants look at him with disdain. They see him dirty, aged, dressed in rags. No one suspects that this tired man was born within those very walls. Some insult him, others push him away from the gate. "Go away," they shout. "There is no alms here for vagabonds." The pain pierces his soul, but he does not protest. He accepts the rejection in silence. Just when he is about to walk away, an elderly servant, one of the few who still remembers times past, takes pity on him. Something in Alexius's gaze inspires compassion in him, even without recognizing him. Moved, he offers him a small space to stay, under the back stairs of the palace, a dark corner, cold, forgotten. No one passes by there except to throw away food scraps or sweep up the dust. Alexius accepts gratefully, and there begins his second desert, but this time he is not far from his family. He is in the middle of them. He hears his mother's voice when she cries at night. He recognizes his father's tired tone when giving orders. Sometimes he hears the soft footsteps of the woman who was once his wife. Everyone is close, but no one knows he is there, only a few meters away, and at the same time, infinitely far. In that hidden corner, under the stairs of the house that was his, Alexius lives the greatest test of his life, the poverty of anonymity, in the heart of the home that saw him born. The corner under the stairs becomes his permanent dwelling, a narrowed damp space, almost invisible to those who pass through the house. There, among dust, cobwebs, and forgotten remnants, Alejo withdraws in silence, while life continues above his head. From that dark hideout, he hears the echo of voices that once belonged to him. He hears his father, worn out by years and sadness, walking slowly through the hallways as he repeats, almost like a broken prayer, "Where are you, my son? Why did you leave? What became of you?" Each word is a blow that pierces his heart, but Alejo does not speak. He does not respond. He knows that revealing his identity would mean breaking the path God asked him to follow. He also hears the contained weeping of his mother. At night, when everything is silent, he hears her praying in the neighboring room. Her voice breaks as she begs for her lost son, not knowing that he is so close that he could touch her if he reached out through the wall. And he hears, with an even deeper pain, the voice of the woman who was his wife. She does not reproach him. She does not curse him. She only prays. She asks God to take care of the man she loved, the same man who now sleeps a few steps from her, dressed as an unknown beggar. And yet, Alejo remains silent. His silence is not cowardice, but sacrifice, a painful renunciation that becomes his daily cross, the cross of knowing he is loved and remaining invisible. The treatment he receives is no better than that of an animal. Some servants, unaware of who he is, look at him with contempt. They throw him scraps of food as if feeding a stray dog. Others mock his appearance, insult him, push him when he is in the way. More than once they throw dirty water on him to drive him away. Sometimes he receives unfair blows, cruel humiliations, words that hurt more than any physical wound, but he does not respond. He does not defend himself. He does not complain. He does not hold a grudge. He takes his pain and transforms it into prayer. Each tear in secret, each unanswered contempt, each humiliation offered in silence becomes an act of love. The sacrifice that began far away in the streets of Edessa is now perfected there, a few meters from the heart he loves most on earth. And yet, no one knows. No one suspects that this silent beggar under the stairs is the lost son, the absent husband, the missing heir. Only God knows the truth. And in that hidden mystery, Alejo finds the deepest holiness, the holiness of silence. Time continues its silent march. The seasons pass, one after another. The years accumulate on his body like ancient dust. The young nobleman who one day left Rome no longer exists. In his place remains an old man with a serene gaze, with weakened hands and fragile bones, but with a heart firmer than ever. His body wears out, but his faith remains intact. Every day it costs him more to get up, more to breathe, more to endure the cold that seeps through the cracks in the floor. However, he does not complain. He knows that his life is nearing its end, and he accepts it with the same humility with which he embraced poverty. One afternoon, as the sun sets behind the walls of the palace, Alexius feels something different inside. It is not pain, it is not fear, it is peace. He understands that his pilgrimage, the one that began far away, continued in exile, and culminated under the stairs of his own house, is about to end. Then he gathers his last strength. In a soft, almost muted voice, he asks one of the servants for something unusual for a beggar: paper and ink. The servants look at him with mockery and surprise. Some laugh, others despise him. "What does this ragged man want to write?" they murmur. But finally, out of simple curiosity or indifference, they give him what he asks for. His hands tremble. The cold runs through his fingers, but his spirit burns with determination. He rests the parchment on his knees and slowly begins to write. Each stroke is a confession, each word a wound that finally opens, each line a testament to love and sacrifice. He writes his promise made to God in his youth. He writes the pain of abandoning his parents. He writes the renunciation of his beloved wife. He writes the years of poverty in distant lands. He writes his hidden return, his anonymous life under the stairs of his home. No one heard him cry in life, but now his truth speaks for him. When he finishes, he folds the writing with reverence, like someone keeping a sacred treasure. He presses it against his chest, close to the heart that was silent for so many years. His strength abandons him. He slowly closes his eyes. And silently, without anyone noticing, without human glory or recognition, Alexius gives up his spirit. He dies as he lived, in silence, in humility, in hidden love. While in the house, the world continues its routine. No one knows that, under those stairs, an unknown saint has departed. Dawn breaks. The first rays of light enter timidly through the courtyards of the house. The servants begin their daily tasks without paying attention to the dark corner under the stairs, until one of them notices the motionless body of the beggar. They believe he has died as so many poor people die in silence, without a name, without a story, without farewell. They decide to remove him soon, so that no one notices him. But when they try to lift him, something catches their attention, a scroll clutched in his hands. "Leave it, that does not matter," one says. However, another servant, moved by curiosity, unrolls the writing, and then the world stops. The first lines are enough to freeze their blood. That man was no ordinary beggar. He was Alexius, son of the lord of the house, the lost heir, the young nobleman for whom all of Rome wept for years. The news spreads like wildfire through the corridors. The servants scream, call the masters. The atmosphere fills with confusion, weeping, disbelief. No one can believe what they hear. Eufemiano arrives running. His gaze meets the fragile, thin, unrecognizable body, and upon hearing the reading of the scroll, his strength collapses. He falls to his knees. His hands tremble. He embraces his son's body and breaks into a deep, heartbreaking cry, a cry born of love and regret. My son," he repeats again and again. "Forgive me. I did not know how to see you." Aglaé arrives shortly after. Upon seeing the beggar's face, she understands without needing words. Her pain explodes in a scream that pierces the entire house, a scream full of love, desolation, and astonishment. She embraces her son's body, as if she wants to recover the lost years. She cries on his chest, that chest she sought tirelessly for 17 years, without knowing that he was always so close. And there, next to them, Alejo's wife is petrified. Her hands cover her face. Her tears fall in silence as she understands the most painful and, at the same time, most luminous truth. That beggar to whom she so often offered bread, water, compassion, and prayer was her husband. The same man who waited for infidelity, the same one she loved without understanding his departure, the same one who chose sacrifice instead of home. No one can speak. All of Rome will know it. The news spreads through the city like a divine echo. Nobles, priests, beggars, slaves, all come to the place. Some kneel, others weep as they touch his body. And something extraordinary begins to happen. The sick are healed as they approach. Mourners find consolation. The blind regain the spiritual sight of the soul. The beggar, despised, humiliated, ignored for years, is revealed as an instrument of grace. That man who chose to hide under the stares of the world now rises to eternal light. From that day on, Alexius ceases to be the nameless beggar. He becomes a testimony of dedication, humility, and absolute love. The lost son, the husband faithful to God, the servant of silence, the man who renounced everything to live hidden in the divine will, is proclaimed by the faith of the people, Saint Alexis. The news of that man who lived as a beggar under his own house did not take long to spread beyond Rome. What began as a murmur in the streets became a tale that crossed squares, roads, monasteries, and entire kingdoms. His story traveled from mouth to mouth, crossed seas and mountains, and with the passage of time became an immortal testimony. The example of Alexis was not a public feat, not a miracle performed before multitudes. It was something deeper, greater, and more mysterious. It was the glory of God hidden in silence. There, in the very place where he had endured humiliations, where he had offered his pain in secret, and had lived as a stranger in his own home, a church was erected in his memory. People began to pilgrimage from distant places to pray there, to touch those silent walls that had witnessed an invisible sacrifice, and under that staircase, hard, cold, narrow, nothing was moved. It was left intact, not as ruins, but as a testament. The dark corner that had once been a source of contempt was now an altar of hope. That small space became a symbol of a truth that the world rarely understands, that holiness does not always shine in the light of day. It often grows in secret, amidst silent tears and renunciations that no one sees. Alexis's family, broken by grief and transformed by the revelation, changed their destiny forever. His wife, that faithful woman who loved him, without knowing he was so close, gave her life to God. She sought no solace in riches or honors. She decided to live in prayer, dedicating her existence to service and good. His parents, touched by grace and guilt, finally understood the meaning of sacrifice. They distributed much of their wealth among the poor, recognizing that the true treasure was not in gold or possessions, but in the charity that is born of love and repentance. And so, over time, the figure of Alexis became a beacon for those who wander homeless, for the aimless travelers, for the pilgrims who journey with hope in their hearts, and for all who suffer in the silence of anonymity. Saint Alexis became the protector of the humble, of those who live unseen, of those who carry their cross without human recognition. His life left a message that is not erased by the centuries. True greatness does not need applause. The purest faith does not demand to be admired. The deepest holiness often dwells in the places that the world despises, because, sometimes, the closest heart is the one that remains hidden. And his story continues to whisper through time, like a voice that springs from the stillness of silence. God reveals his glory where no one is looking.